Welcome once again to the Marty Heiser Show. You know, it's a stormy, miserable night out there, so why not just curl up, maybe pop some popcorn, settle in, because we have got a great show for you tonight. On this very studio set, we have congressional candidate in the 5th Congressional District, making up 41 towns, Mark Greenberg, successful real estate businessman. Unlike what you might hear from our president, he wasn't given this business. He actually had to build it. And he's going to talk a little bit about the economy. He's going to talk a little bit about career politicians and a little bit also about his pledge. So you get a chance to meet him. And by the way, we're going to put up the number. The number here is 203-438-2003. If you have a question for Mark Greenberg, now's the time. We had Linda McMahon on here, and we had some great questions saying, you know, why are you spending $50 million to get a job that only pays like $70,000, something like that? This is live television. This is no spin. This isn't Fox News or CNN or something. You know, we're just sitting there hashing it out. And these guys come in here because they want to run for office, and they are subject to you, the voting public. So Mark Greenberg's here, and he'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And then we also have this young lady named Carolina, who is from a family from Romania, and she offers an interesting perspective on the direction that the United States is going right now. Do we really want to be a European socialist country, or do we want to reverse track and move back the other way? Without any further ado, I'd just like to introduce Mark Greenberg, the candidate for the 5th Congressional District for Congress. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
What we have is a live television, so we always take any calls that call in. Caller, do you have a question for Mark Greenberg, or is this my wife wanting me to pick up milk?
No, I do have a question for Mark. I heard in your intro you were going to be talking about career politicians, and you know, I think that's one of the biggest problems out there. These guys go down there, they stay forever, and all they do is vote for the next election instead of what's good for the country. I mean, what would Mark do to kind of take the careerism out of Congress?
All right, that's an excellent question. Thanks so much for the call. How about that? You seem to be a successful guy.
Yeah.
What the hell do you need this job for? Are you going to, you know, go there to...
I don't need the job, but the job needs me. Okay. I believe that this is the greatest country in the world, and I'm a product of the American dream. I'm not ashamed of it, and I make no excuses for it.
Right.
But I don't think that this country is going to be the same for my children or the next generation until I give back and try to turn this steamship around.
Yeah.
This is American exceptionalism. We are the greatest country in the world. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
We can get it back. Now, I think that the people who have gone down to Washington have an agenda.
Yeah.
Their agenda. Not your agenda. Their agenda is to get elected time and time again. Their agenda is the business of politics and having that great job, earning $184,000 a year, having a health plan outside of Obamacare, which is better than you'll ever get, and having the power of being called congressman, congresswoman. They get intoxicated with that. So they go down there and they go down to stay. Their agenda is being elected time and time and time again. So what they do is they vote according to the best ability to get elected time and time again. So what am I doing? I've pledged to not serve more than 8 years. I'm taking it upon myself to say I'm not going to become like you.
Okay.
I've also pledged to not accept a congressional pension, because we shouldn't be going down there for the benefits and the perks. We should go down there to give back to the country. And then the third part of this pledge, which is incredible, I'm pledging to not exempt myself from the very laws that we pass.
So you're going to be subject to Obamacare?
Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. I'm going to be subject to all the laws that are on the books and all the laws that we pass. Because those guys down there think that they're better than you and me, and they exempt themselves. I think that's patently wrong. And by the way, when I go from door to door in Danbury or elsewhere, that's the one thing that attracts people, that I've signed this pledge, and that no other candidate, Republican or Democrat, has signed any one of those 3 pledges.
Wow.
Nobody.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, to me, you're the classic outsider, the guy that's finally said enough is enough. I got to go in there. If you want to have it done right, you got to go in. You know, sometimes I think, you know, the liberal, progressive Democrats are always, oh, we care about the people. It's all the dastardly Republicans that, you know, are just money grubbing and want to give, you know, their buddies at the country club tax breaks and stuff like that. But when you really think about it, the road that we're going down, all this non-fiscal restraint, all this spending, we're just taking it and heaping it on our children, on our grandchildren.
Well,
I mean, well, you know,
Marty, we're heaping it on ourselves too. We're doing it at such a fast pace that, I mean, I'd like to say we're heaping it upon our children and our grandchildren, but we're heaping it upon ourselves at such a rate that it's going to affect, it is affecting us now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, little anecdotally, I'm sitting in my kitchen, and I've got a 26-year-old daughter, a 23-year-old son. 23-year-old son, some of his friends are over. One guy, his dad is a plumber, and he can't get a job. He graduated from college, can't get a job, so he's working for his dad as a plumber. Another guy graduated from Villanova. He's looking for a job. He's delivering pizzas. There are no jobs out there for kids that went to college because we're running this economy into the ground with these you know, crazy liberal ideas. By the way, we're also joined by Dave Strait. Have you met Dave? He's a hulking presence right there. But we have another call. Caller, you have a question for Mark Greenberg, candidate for the 5th Congressional District. Go right ahead.
Yes, well, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, I'd like to have Mr. Greenberg explain to me about the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
What he would like to do to, because we're talking about waste and fraud, and the Federal Reserve is probably the biggest portion of that. But the second question that I want to ask him is, will he accept any money given to him by any of the Koch brothers groups? Americans for Progress, the Heritage Foundation. Will you disavow any knowledge of any participation with the Koch brothers?
All right, excellent question. Thanks a lot for the call. What about that? The Koch brothers are, you know, those are those big, dastardly rich Republican types that backed the governor in Wisconsin and some other guys.
You're talking Koch, K-O-C-H, I think, right?
Yeah.
To be very honest with you, in the last 4 or 5 months, I haven't accepted money from almost anybody because I find fundraising very, very difficult and almost in a way embarrassing at this point in time. We have 3 other candidates, and we're asking people to give to us when they don't know who's going to be the ultimate candidate. And I'm asking people to give to a fellow who's been the product of the American dream. So I find it somewhat embarrassing. So I've discontinued fundraising for the last 3 or 4 months. I will start again if I am the nominee. I have to divulge that right now because it will still be a very expensive campaign.
There's a limit to the Mark Greenberg fortune that you can tap into. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there is a there is a
well,
limit.
You don't have access to TARP funds, right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You know, again, I've been very, very blessed in this country, and I feel that if I don't give back now, there may not be a similar country for my children, my grandchildren. Furthermore, I think that the money that I'm giving now will be worth less with the destructive policies of not only the Fed, as the call it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, we need to have sound money.
Right.
And the Fed has not been a great proponent of sound money.
Right.
And they're borrowing way too much. The government is borrowing way too much.
Right.
Primarily from the Chinese and the Japanese.
Right.
42% of our budget is borrowed.
Yeah, that
We're
kills
$16 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
That's over $140,000, $150,000 per tax-paying individual in America.
And what we don't borrow, we're just printing. I mean, we're buying, you know, at the press, are just printing money hand over fist. We are joined now by a gentleman named Bob McGuffey. He is known in conservative circles in the state of Connecticut. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. We have Mark Greenberg here in studio. And what can you tell us about Mark Greenberg? And do you and your fellow travelers agree with his platform?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Marty. Yeah, I mean, we came out and endorsed him, and conservative grassroots are firmly behind Mark because he espouses our principles, and he's taking common sense into the campaign, and he's a tough guy that would get into Congress and keep his eye on the ball of getting the budget under control. And those are all the things that we're interested in, and he's our man in the 5th District, that's for sure.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, do you think? I mean, you're kind of a political guy. What's up with his eventual opponent on the Democratic side? He seems to be having some legal entanglements of late. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they just arrested 5 more people from his campaign, in their money laundering scandal that they've got in their campaign finance, and that's all to the bed. It's an open seat. The Democrats are wounded on this one, and they've got compromise candidates that they're trying to push forward, and we've got a great citizen legislator in Mark Greenberg, and we've got to get him through the primary, and he can win this election and get into Congress and really plant the flag for conservative grassroots in Connecticut, that's for sure.
All right, besides him just sitting here looking good in a suit, do you have a question for him as well?
I have a question for him at this point. How's the campaign look right? So the second ad, do you have more ads coming, Mark? What's coming in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, we have at least one more ad, possibly two, and we're going to be on cable and broadcast until the last day. This second ad was a great ad, and I think in looking objectively at it, it pointed out how career politicians can screw things up. It was better than the first ad, which we called Dust. I can't remember what it's called, but I've been getting a lot of calls that this is one great ad.
All right, well, listen, Bob McGuffey, grassroots organizer out there, appreciate you very much calling in, and I guess you and your folks are going to do all you can for Mark Greenberg.
We are. We'll be out in full force as we move towards the primary, and good luck, Mark, in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Bob.
So I want to jump in on one thing. The caller that called in before him, he made that comment about the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
Let me just say this, and I want everybody in America, that's listening. I don't know how many people are listening. The Koch,
we get thousands and thousands of hits on YouTube.
Any morning you wake up in America and you feel this much freedom, get down on your knees and thank the Koch brothers. I know the Koch brothers. I worked for the Koch brothers. They're some of the finest Americans on planet Earth. They fight for your freedom every day. I have no idea what that caller, he had some hesitation or, he had some, opinions on him. I have no idea what the source of it was.
I believe the caller has seen a documentary about the Koch brothers where they got sweetheart deals with the Justice Department and the Bush administration.
Garbage. They have been attacked. They were the only company to stand up to the Clinton administration when they were trying to put in that BTU tax. And they went around to all the other oil companies. Nobody would touch it. Koch took them on and won. I mean, they're the reason we have freedom in America. They're great guys.
All right. Let's talk about some of your endorsement. Rick Torres, who's a very
good guy, ran for mayor in Bridgeport.
Right.
He's a Cuban-American, great success story.
All right.
He believes in the Constitution, and I'm proud to have his endorsement.
Dick Morris, I saw the video endorsement he made of you. I mean, he's over the top for you.
Yeah,
yeah. What's he been drinking?
Our message is getting out. It's getting out in the 5th District, it's getting out in the state, it's getting out in this country, really, what we're trying to do. This is still considered a Democratic state, less so in the 5th District, but what we're trying to do is create a bit of a miracle in the 5th District. We're a conservative, pro-life candidate. Hopefully he's going to win this nomination, hopefully going to win the seat, and bring back those principles to New England. So Dick Morris learned about this campaign and came to my rescue with an endorsement. I'm very proud to have it.
Wow. And then Peter Schiff, Bob McGuffey, who we just heard from, who heads up the Tea Party in Connecticut, although they don't like to say there's any head. It's just a mass movement. But Peter Schiff also came out and
great guy, great economic mind. He's going to be one of my advisors down in Washington if I'm there. I like the guy. There's nobody smarter on economic issues, in my opinion, than Peter Schiff.
Yeah, if you ever want to see him on some of these financial shows, you can see like his greatest hits. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
What question do you have?
Well, so anytime a politician, someone that's running for public office comes on, I always like to start out and say, did you serve in Vietnam? I mean, we've had some trouble with politicians in Connecticut thinking they served in Vietnam, and they didn't. So, I mean, did you have any military service?
No, as a matter of fact, if you remember back in the Vietnam era, we had a lottery. And my number on the lottery, when that lottery was taken from me, was 69. So I was ready to go the next year. But then the war ended, if you recall, so it wasn't called
Gotcha.
up.
Okay, can we talk about some policy things that you'll be weighing in on? One is in the military. In the U.S. right now, I read recently where the U.S. spends more on their military than all the militaries in the world combined. Is that sustainable?
The answer is yes. We're the strongest country in the world. We're the greatest country in the world. We're spending less as a percentage of gross domestic product now than we have in past years. We have to be strong. But if we're not strong, the rest of the world could be weakened by that. So the answer is yes. And the Constitution, by the way, gives us job one to be strong, to protect our borders. Now, are we spending sometimes wantonly and not carefully? I'm sure we are. Big government has a way of spending inefficiently. But do we have to stay strong? We absolutely do.
Okay, and can we just touch on a couple other things? Where are you on legalizing drugs? I mean, should we legalize pot?
I'm against it.
No go on there.
No go.
Okay. I'm a big fan of Ron Paul, and Ron Paul, it's great when he gets up in these debates, he goes right down the list. Well, I'd cut this, I'd cut this, I'd cut this.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, he'd cut out most everything in the federal government, right? Well, I mean, what would you be a proponent of cutting out?
Let's get back to the Constitution, which is a tremendous roadmap for the greatest country in this world, written by a lot of smart guys who wanted to protect our freedom and protect our liberty. They built this document based upon protecting the borders and giving to the states anything not in that document that was in there. So basically what they said is if it's not in the federal, it's not up to the federal government if it's not in this document, it's up to the states, more at the local level. So that's why I say it's very, very important to protect the borders through defense. But other than that, I think the federal government is trying to do way too much. And they're not doing a good job.
Well, they're trying to do everything, right?
They're trying to do everything, and they're not doing a good job.
So what do we do to get things like Obamacare? Is there anything that can be done to stop that at this point?
Sure. You have to fire Obama. You have to replace him, and you have to elect 5 or 6 Republican senators. Then we can repeal. Congress has already tried to repeal, as you know. They take these votes, of course.
They've done it 30 times.
33 times, I think. Yeah. But they need to have a different president, and they need to have 5 more senators. So that's what you have to do. You have to go to the polls November 6th and fire Obama and hire 5 more Republican U.S. senators.
Now, just from like your political philosophy point of view, right now there are close to 50 million Americans that are receiving food stamps. I guess from a progressive point of view, you would say, wow, isn't that great that there's a benevolent government that's looking out for the needy and providing food for them. From a conservative point of view, I would say that is an unmitigated disaster, that you have able-bodied Americans that where the economy has been so strangled and has been so mismanaged that they're unable to find gainful employment to provide for them and their
first of all,
families.
food stamps are like drugs. You have a drug, then you have to stay on the drug. You learn not to be off that drug. I'd rather have jobs for these 50 million people.
Yeah.
I'd rather they have jobs so that they can take care of themselves and get off of food stamps. You know, the federal government tells us in state parks that we can't feed the bears, we can't feed the wild animals because they want to come back and get more. Well, isn't that the same thing with food stamps?
I mean, that's what I find. That's what I find a little unseemly right now about the present administration and what they're trying to do. They're actually running advertisements on some of the Hispanic channels. They do it in the form of a soap opera on the radio. Other places are saying, yeah, you know, the nutritional values of having food stamps. They're doing everything they can to cause people to be dependent on the government.
Yeah.
Because when you take from Peter and you give to Paul, you can usually count on Paul voting for you, you know.
Oh, a vote.
Yeah, a vote. I mean,
Right,
and that's what it seems like. And I'm a little nervous about this this next election because I'm wondering, have we gone too far? Are we at the tipping point? Now everyone, oh, my health care, the government's going to take care of that.
Well,
Don't worry
the key
about
is
it.
if more than 50% are on the dole, then you've lost the country, basically, because those 50% are going to vote for their own benefits.
But I mean, can they get past that? Can they say, you know, okay, you have the you know, NAACP. Oh yeah, we're voting for Obama. It's great. You know, all the African Americans, they're going to vote for Obama. Yet there's 14% unemployment within the black community. There's upwards of 49% teenage unemployment within the African American community. At some point, can anybody sit back and say, you know, this waiting for handouts for the government, it just ain't working out. It didn't work out for my mom, it didn't work out for my grandmother, and it ain't working out for me. And I look around my community, it doesn't seem to be working out for people around here either.
You think at some point in time these folks will realize it isn't working? Let's try something else. Let's try conservative values. Let's try Republican values. Let's try self-reliance.
Yeah.
Let's try doing it for ourselves.
I don't know. Is that just a message that as Republicans we're just not getting out, or it just sounds self-serving, or it's like, oh, you got yours, and you're not paying your fair share, and if you would, there'd be more money to give to me, so I could have.
We're very poor at marketing our brand.
Yeah.
Our brand is a brand that's good for a lot of people. Our brand is good for union people. Our brand is good for business people, small business people. Our brand is good for a lot of people, but we're not good getting that message out.
Let me just jump back to the healthcare situation. My concern with conservatives or Republicans right now is everybody's just thinking they can win just by saying, hey, I'm against Obamacare. It's not good enough. I mean, we have to have a plan. What would you do to try and you know, bring down healthcare costs and rein it in? What's the alternative?
First, let's distinguish between healthcare cost and insurance for healthcare. We have one of the greatest healthcare industries in the world. As a matter of fact, people come to this country when they have a disease.
Like your family.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, there's Canadian prime ministers that are head ministers of various provinces in Canada.
Right.
When they need heart surgery, they come down here.
Because we have a great medical delivery, a health delivery system.
Yeah.
So let's be careful about affecting that health delivery system with big government plans which are going to depreciate the value of that service.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to buy a Mercedes-Benz usually costs $60,000, or a Lincoln Town Car, $60,000, $70,000. You can't necessarily buy a new Lincoln Town Car for $30,000. I mean, the point is, there is a relationship between the service you get, or the product you get, and what you're paying for that service or product.
Right.
So let's be very careful what we do with healthcare. And I think a government takeover of healthcare is a big mistake. And then, once we get rid of Obamacare, let's get some smart people in a room. Let's deal with the real issues. Let's have tort reform. Okay, let's have catastrophic policies that can be sold by insurance companies over the lines of states.
Yeah.
Let's do what we can to fix the problem, but you don't want to wreck the whole house in the process of fixing the problem. Be careful.
Well, the Congressional Budget Office came out. You remember when that was first passed, they said, okay, this is going to cost about $900 billion over 10 years. Congressional Budget Office came out this last week and said, oh, that number, by the way, it's now up to $2.9 trillion over 10 years. Yeah. These are staggering numbers.
When did the CBO ever estimate cost properly?
Yeah.
Okay, this reminds me of when I used to start with the Lotus version 1.0. And you have the backslash. You could make any prediction you want. You can go out 10 years, you can go out 20 years. You use static bases, not dynamic. So I don't believe anything the CBO says, frankly, either way.
Yeah, the numbers just continue to creep up. Catherine Sebelius came out this week and wanted to take credit for Obamacare already cutting the cost of health care, because before Obamacare, costs were only going up 7% a year. Now they're going up 4% a year. Excuse me, Catherine. I mean, she needs to realize Obamacare is not in effect yet. All we're doing is paying into it and getting no benefits. So how can she claim? And the fact is, nobody's working. Everybody's lost their health care coverage. So yeah, nobody's going to the doctors. That's why health care costs are coming down, or aren't climbing as fast right now. So
I don't know. There's a couple other things I saw you in some other interviews and in the press. What do you want to do if you get to Congress? If we see what happened in 2010 replicated now in 2012, if it doesn't seem like the economy's gotten any better, it doesn't seem like what we're hearing from government is anything but more of the same. I'm hopeful, optimistic that even here in Connecticut, the bluest of blue states, maybe people will come to their senses and say, hey, my kid can't find a job. Friends of mine have had to leave the state and gone down. The unemployment rate has continued to go up. What we're doing in Hartford and we're doing in Washington just isn't working. Because I think a lot of times these elections are more about firing the party that's in power rather than hiring the new guy. But, you know, if this could all work out, what do you want to do vis-a-vis the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, tort reform, and some of these other things, brass tacks issues when you get to Congress?
When you talk about Department of Energy, let's go back. This was created in the era of Carter, 1978, I believe, and the goal of the Department of Energy was to become energy independent in 25 years.
I saw a video montage of that going back from Carter to Reagan to Ford. Every single, we have to be less dependent on foreign oil. We have to be energy.
Look,
it's been a common mantra throughout, but it hasn't worked.
The Congress has literally elevated dysfunction to an art form. But let's talk about energy for a second.
Right.
Let's drill in Anwar. Let's drill off the coast of Florida.
Yeah.
Let's drill in the Bakken Formation. Let's allow Keystone to build a pipeline through this country.
You think?
Let's allow our private companies to develop the infrastructure within this country. Yeah. Let's reduce the depreciation schedule for this infrastructure from 33 or 30 years to 5 years or 4 years or 3 years. Remember,
Mr. Greenberg, you just lost me on that whole depreciation thing, but I was with you so much with the Anwar and everything else, and I'm just going to roll ahead with this.
Let me make it real easy.
Please, he's the money guy. I know depreciation. You buy a car, it depreciates 11, 30, but
let's become energy independent within 15 years.
All right, I like that.
Let's rely less on the Middle East.
Yeah, but won't that put the terrorists out of business? Do we really want to do that?
That would be good, wouldn't that?
Imagine that.
What a novel thought.
Have the pipeline come down from Canada, where they basically.
But then we won't be able to fight wars and try out all this hardware.
Canadians, we have one of the longest undefended borders with our brothers. I married a Canadian, and many of them are my relatives by marriage. They're fine. They just like to drink Molson and watch hockey.
Let me give you a collateral benefit. We're going to lose less American blood in the Middle East, okay? We're going to reduce unemployment because we're going to have energy jobs.
Yeah.
We have the largest reserves in the Bakken Formation right now.
Yeah.
We are more energy rich than Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Can we please get to it? I don't worry so much about a toad or a let's
spotted owl, a toad, a lizard, all these things.
Let's please develop these resources.
Yeah.
Let's lower unemployment.
Right now, the Canadians per capita are richer than Americans for the first time in a long time, and that's basically because they're just digging a hole and getting the natural resources out of the ground and selling it to whomever. If we don't put in the pipeline, they're going to sell it to the Chinese. They can run a pipe out to the Pacific as quickly as they can run it down here.
Well,
that's what they want to do.
The situation in the wars in the Middle East are very really focused on that right now, because these guys are coming back to America. They don't have jobs. I was talking to a gentleman down in Florida yesterday, and his passion is to try and find jobs for these vets that are coming back. He said there's one vet every day that's committing suicide in Florida. He said every street corner, on every stoplight, there's a military vet that's panhandling. He said drive down any alley in any place in Florida, and you find vets sleeping in alleys. Well, how can we do that? I mean, we can't
let's be very clear. We don't treat our vets properly. This is absolutely a disgrace. Absolutely a disgrace.
So how do we get them jobs? I mean, what do we do?
We're in the lightning round here. You got a minute and a half left.
Okay.
All right. Give me this vast viewing audience. I want you to answer the question: why should we vote for Mark Greenberg? Give you our trust to go to Washington. Give it to us in a minute and a half.
It's very simple. It's very simple. I believe in American excellence, exceptionalism, and I'm not going to let this country go down the wrong road. I'm going to give back. I've signed the pledge. 8 years. I've signed the pledge for no congressional pension. I've signed the pledge to live by the very laws that we pass. Nobody else in this district, in this race, has. I'm going to go down for the right reasons. I don't need the job. The job needs me to do what's right for this country. I want to give back to this country, and that's why they have to see that I'm genuine and that I'm honest and I'll do the right thing for this country.
Oh, well, listen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very
really
much for
appreciate it
inviting
very
me.
much.
Sure. Thanks
I
a
don't know,
lot,
Dave.
Mark.
I'm
Well
mildly
done.
comforted by a guy that just doesn't need the money.
Well, here's one of the things I listen for really closely. Anytime
Yeah.
a politician pretends.
So we're going to talk about you like you're a potted plant, like you're not here. But
So
go ahead. What did you like about the guy?
Anytime someone's running for office, I'm always listening. And if they ever say, I have a history of getting along with the other party, I turn off, because every time someone gets along with the other party, particularly Democrats, my taxes go up, there's more government regulation, more government spending. So as long as you get in there and you don't get along with the other party, I think we'll be fine.
Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for inviting
us. Wish you all the luck in the world, and good luck on, what is it, August 14th?
August 14th. Please
Come
go
on
to the
out
polls
and vote. It's
and
important.
speak to 10 other people at the time.
Excellent.
Vote for me.
Excellent.
Good luck.
All
Well done.
right.
Thank you.
So we're going to come to me, and we're basically, what we have coming up next is a very lovely young lady named Carolina Barba, and her family is originally from Romania, and she's going to give us her perspective. She also has an aspiring media career. But before we get to her, I just want to point out, I want to share some pictures with you. This is a picture of Congressman Chris Murphy. Now, we have talked to Chris Murphy's office and asked him if he would come in and share his views on government and what he wants to do. He wants to be your next senator from the state of Connecticut. But Chris Murphy hasn't found it in his busy schedule to come in and answer some questions that you might have. If you know Chris Murphy, or if you've spotted this man, if he hasn't been at some, she Democratic fundraiser somewhere, and you'd like to talk to him, mention that he was, or mention to them that we were talking about him on the Marty Heiser show and how much we'd like to have him come in. Also, this guy, you might recognize him, all you viewers in Cablevision. This is Jim Himes. Handsome fellow, don't you think? He worked for that Solomon Brothers.
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, that was it. Goldman Sachs. You'll remember them. They're the ones
They
who
were
were
doing God's work.
Yeah, they were doing God's work, and they were, when all your tax dollars went to bail out AIG. Watch the bouncing money. It went from AIG so they could pay off those credit default swaps and go right back to Goldman Sachs. He's a Goldman Sachs guy. But this is Jim Himes. He's very, very busy. There's so much Chablis and crab cake to eat at these Democratic fundraisers, so he hasn't had time to come into a lowly cable TV show like this and maybe answer a few questions from you, the viewing audience, like Mark Greenberg did today. It's a live program. You can call in. So if you see Jim Himes, just mention that he was talked about on this show, and he might want to consider coming in. And lastly, there's this fine young lady named Susan Beisowitz. You can see her here. Let me see if I have some other pictures. Yeah, mainly this picture. This is Susan Beisowitz right here. She wants to be your next senator as well. She's running against Chris Murphy. Unfortunately, more or less a liberal Democrat, but somehow the liberal Democrats just don't want to come on television here.
Isn't it?
I'm not sure, but they just don't want to come on. I guess they would like a safe, maybe NPR or something like that. I don't know. We're pretty well behaved. I try to, clean up for the show. They're calm. They're met with respect. So if you see Susan Beisowitz, that's her picture right there. Just call her and tell her, we'd like to have you come in on the show. We want to hear what you have to say. So, just to review, Susan Beisowitz, where are you? Jim Himes, I know we're not your liberal elite media. Come on in, Jim. Come on in. You're a tough guy. You can handle it. And then Chris Murphy, you want to be a United States Senator. Why can't you come on down? Don't you live right around here somewhere? It's not that far. Come on down. We'll have a nice chat. So we'll reach out to those communication directors again. But if not, I'm thinking of giving out some rubber chicken awards, for each one of these guys. So come on in. The people want to meet you. Carolina, thank you so much for joining us.
How are you?
Very good, very good. I'm very excited to have you on because you bring, among other things, you're involved in media. You were involved at WestCon, was it?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about you, how you ended up here, and what your interests are, both in going forward in media, as well as your perspective, because your family's originally from Romania, and where you see the country going from your perspective.
Well, I guess I should start off just kind of introducing myself as
Please.
a recent graduate, clearly unemployed, of course.
Now, that's another question. What is the percentage of unemployed recent college graduates?
Out of my friends, I would have to say probably about 60.
60%. The numbers are, I think it's like 25 to 30% recent college graduates can't find a job.
You know, Marty, when you and I
This is our greatest asset
no, I know.
right here.
When you and I came out of college,
Sorry, a lot of times we just talk and ignore the guests.
well,
that's okay.
the world was our oyster, right? I mean, we had all this, we didn't think there were any limitations that stood in our way.
The colleges, they were like Procter & Gamble and GE. They
lined up to hire.
They would, yeah, they would do jobs fair. And it would be like, oh, yeah, I was offered a signing bonus here. I was offered, you know, I mean, we went to really great schools. But not now. These kids are coming out, they got $80,000 in debt, and they can't get a freaking job.
I mean, do you feel that people that are graduating from college, they feel a little bit disillusioned with the American dream? What do they think? What's the outlook for America? My nieces and nephews, they don't even think about buying a house because it's a horrible investment.
Dave,
you know?
we've got to stop talking. This young lady has something on her heart and mind she wants to share. You tell us. Just a bunch of blowhards here. We just go on if you don't interrupt. Go right ahead.
It's funny because you put in the word recession, and it's as though we're supposed to be okay with what's going on. It's not an okay spot for us, and the only way to really get by it is on our own. I graduated from WestConn with a media arts major, which can range from anything. What I end up doing with it now when I'm looking for jobs is I call it marketing. I call it advertising, because that's the only way that I could even get my foot into a business right now. But even before then, when you talk about the delusion and all that, I have noticed pretty much since high school, when I was preparing myself to go to school, as you said before, my parents are foreign. They're from a different country. So I had no type of background when it came to understanding higher education in general. Interest, not a clue. I was 18, I didn't know what interest was. That's not good. And it's the way, I don't want to like blame public schools in any way, but I know that we're definitely misdirected.
Now, when you say interest, what do you mean by interest?
What do you mean?
You said when you were talking about interest, are you talking about interest you get at a bank? Or
yes.
Interest? Okay, so you didn't know about like having a bank account and getting interest and how you kind of get your feet on the ground financially in your family's new country. Okay.
Exactly. And so when I go to speak to a guidance counselor, when I was looking for schools, it's so easy to assume that we're in Fairfield County. So we must come from money. There's some sort of a foundation there, so that a small private school for college is maybe within our reach. But for me personally, it definitely wasn't. So I felt a lot of miscommunication, being misled a lot when it came to my college opportunity. Especially to, like I said, my parents are from Romania, and so within their minds, they see all the time through our culture that kids must go to college. That's the next step.
Yeah.
And
was it hard for your parents to, how long ago did they come here?
My father came here first, and he came in about '86, and then my mom came a year after, and I was the celebration child.
Was it Ceausescu that was there? Or?
Yes, it was.
So they fled under him while he was still in, okay. So, I mean, they know what communism is.
Absolutely.
And how, what's their perspective, or what's your perspective on where we're going as a country now? I mean, are there any parallels? Are we moving towards the European model? I
see that, at least from the information that I've gathered with Romania's history, and just how the 1989 revolution even began, people, they didn't know what was up. I mean, yes, they did. It's communism. But when you live in it, it feels so normal. It feels like reality. That it just took a few people to be like, come on, guys, what are we doing? And with a few people, more people's minds changed. It was about time. It was as though everyone's point of view kind of was at a standstill. And that was enough. They did not want to deal with it anymore. When he was executed for genocide, for just trying to harm like the Romanian people. And the country itself, I'm pretty sure Romania is one of the only countries that actually had bloodshed within getting away from the Iron Curtain. So I see now that, I mean, with Occupy Wall Street particularly, a lot of people were kind of turned off by that entire movement idea because it didn't have like a general statement to it.
Yeah.
But the way I saw it was, okay, but people know something's up. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Do do politicians themselves even know sometimes? I feel like it gets very lost in the in-between. So just the feeling of uncertainty and chaos, I guess, I see is definitely starting to fill at least my demographic. And that's where it comes into play, I feel like, our lack of politics. We just rather not.
Yeah.
If you ask someone now if they're Democrat or Republican, they might tell you, I don't care. If they're my age. They're not. They are indifferent. They don't believe anything that they see. And it saddens me.
Now, I know, now you're a recent graduate from WestConn,
Yes.
right? Now, can you transport yourself back 4 years when Barack Obama and the campaign was going and hope and change, and there was this groundswell of support, especially among the youth? Is that still there, or is there a little bit like, hey, you know, we were a jilted love affair almost, you know, like, hey, we really bought into this, but this is just petty politics, and you're turning one group of Americans against another in an effort to hold on to your power.
Absolutely.
What's this? Don't let me put words in your mouth, but what are you hearing from your peers?
I definitely see that. I remember just a few years ago, you know, hanging out with my friends, we're all talking, one thing leads to another, then politics is in play, and everyone just, they never had a reason why they supported Obama, but they would get so angry if anyone said anything wrong towards it. If we were to have that same conversation today, there wouldn't be a sound.
So
there's definitely a loss towards it. And again, like I said, we're kind of in a disillusion, and it was as though maybe Obama could get us out of it. I don't know why. I don't know how Obama was such a different politician. I mean, he was trendy. That's really what got us. Those slogans, man.
They call it the Kardashian presidency. You know, it's like, well, why are the Kardashians so famous? Well, they're kind of just, you know.
And if we go back a few years ago, I was not in school. I was working over full-time. I was working at least 60 hours a week. I had to stop going to the small private school that I was going to because of financial reasons. Because again, no one told me that it was going to cost me 40 grand of my parents' money that I knew that they didn't have to do this. It was just, well, everybody's doing it, so why wouldn't I be entitled to also do it? No one's entitled to education. I feel like when it comes to higher education, it's your choice. And I mean, I signed those documents. I have debt, and I pay it every month. And I'll do anything to pay it. And I understand that, but I feel like there's definitely a miscommunication and information.
It's interesting because, I mean, not to date myself here, but it was sort of similar. I was in college in the early 80s. And we were coming out of the presidency of Jimmy Carter, and you weren't even born yet. But
why'd you have to bring him up? I almost forgot about
No, but the idea was he actually came on and he would say that there's a great malaise in America right now. We're not the country we used to be, and there was oil embargoes, and there were long lines at the gas stations. And then thankfully, a young band of hockey players from primarily Minnesota and beat the dreaded Russians in the 1980 Olympic.
It's Morning America, baby.
And after that, Ronald Reagan came on. But here was Ronald Reagan's approach. He said, look, to hell with big government. Government, don't come looking to government to help you. He said, when government sees something, if it moves, it taxes it. If it keeps moving, it regulates it. If it stops moving, it subsidizes it. I mean, he would joke. He would joke about big government. He would say, that's what you see over in the Soviet Union. And he had nothing good to say about the evil empire. And as young people in college, we were like, this guy's got some, you know, some guts. This is unbelievable. I mean, he's calling a spade a spade. He's saying it's an evil empire. He's saying don't count on government. If you want to do something with your life, start your own business, go into in the private sector. We're going to try to cut regulation, cut taxes, and you go live the American dream. You can do it. This time around, you've got a leader who's like, hey, you know, we're victims of the market. You know, it's not your fault. Just come to government. We'll give you food stamps. We'll give you health care. Just come to me. We'll take care of everything. All we got to do is get the rich guys to pay their fair share. And once we get their money, which, you know, they got it from nefarious, evil deeds. They didn't build their business. It was given to them. You know, they're bad people. We just need to tax more of their money. And once we do that, big government will be able to give you all your stuff. So all you miserable, unemployed people, you just come to government and we're going to dole stuff out. Now, you know, of course, I'm over the top as usual, but I don't think that that's something that long term the young people really want to buy into or hear. I could be wrong. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it's really disheartening to...
That's usually good for an invite back on the show, by the way. We agree with that.
Great.
This woman is a genius. Invite her back. No, sorry,
it's just disheartening that we play the victim role. When you meet someone and they have that type of persona, which I always like to think of countries as people, you know, like just like kind of, you know, like give them a personification to an extent. And if you were to make America as in the kind of way that we're, the insight and the advice that we are given about our recession, we would be a wimpy, you know, whiny person who blames everyone else for their problems. That's not a strong person. That's not a strong country. So it really, it makes me extremely nervous.
So at age 23, what's the American dream for your generation?
For my generation or for me?
Well, we'll try both.
Okay.
If they're different, split them up.
Great. I think, I mean, honestly, I think that we don't have American dreams anymore. I think that it's very on present terms, what's happening now.
So it's survival.
It's pretty much. And it's so sad because people are not investing their time into their own futures, thinking ahead, thinking about any of that, because to them it's not an investment. It doesn't matter because we don't know where we're going to be in a few years. We don't even know where we are now, to an extent. So
it's sad to hear. It really is, because I want to tell you, I mean, I was raised with the American dream that you can go out and you can build something, you can build a better mousetrap, you can start your own business, you can be whatever you want to be. If you want to pursue a career in law, you know, you can be the best lawyer you want. If you want to you know, start a business, if you want to do investments, you know, the world is your oyster and you just got to go for it. Now these kids are scared. They're really scared. They got a mountain of debt, they don't know what to do, and the economy is bad and it's not getting better. It's just not.
And I got to tell you, a big thing, like with my parents, being from a different country, I feel like I was blessed to have a different type of perspective in my life, because my parents still think in that type of way.
Like America, the streets are paved with gold, that kind of thing.
Totally. And that's why, you know, they even came here. They wanted to provide us with a better future. So it's, to me, everything that I received through like hard work, or I've always I loved school, I'd always do well. My parents, and when I told my parents I was going to go to school for media arts, most parents are like, no, you're not. Like, you're not going to
be an engineer and get a good job and support us in our old age.
Exactly. And my parents...
I know your parents. I've never met them, but I know them.
They genuinely believed in my courage and in my thoughts, and the fact that if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. And I feel like now there's just a trend of mediocrity that has hit not only my generation, but it hit the generation before us slightly. That's, you know, brought us to this point. And I'm terrified to have a child and see what kind of, like, I'm terrified. That's not part of my American dream.
Family formation, you know, the birth rate in America is coming down. I mean, how devastating is that? You know, when you're the president overseeing a generation where people aren't even competent enough to get married and begin to have children, it affects the enrollment in schools. Like I live in Ridgefield. It's a great town. By the way, if you're looking to buy a house, Ridgefield is on sale. You can get a great house in Ridgefield. Mortgage rates are low. We have award-winning education program. Come on in, the water's fine. But it's really sad, you know, to be a part of it. And all I would say, I mean, it's interesting because I've worked with some kids in inner city Bridgeport and inner city Norwalk, and I tell them, don't run, sprint away from any government program that says they're going to help you out with something. You know, food stamps, any of this stuff. Run away. Run as fast as you can. Get a job in the private sector. Go into a small business. Become the important employee in that business, the one that they cannot live without, and you'll do a lot better than if you try to go to some government program and count on government.
So how many resumes would you say you've submitted since you've graduated?
I know that I have at least 50 different resumes, a little under 50 saved on my computer right now. So, and that was kind of like the first step when I would I would really like look for somewhere. I'd take my time. I would invest to look at the company, as though they weren't getting hundreds and hundreds of applications every day. But when it comes to every week, I apply at least 4 times a week.
Okay, and are you conducting a localized job hunt, or are you willing to move, relocate, go across the country?
I'm absolutely willing to locate or relocate.
Okay, so it's not just focused up here, so that's countrywide.
I've been looking like in New York City. I've been looking within all of Connecticut, anywhere in New York that's close. But yeah, unfortunately, distance is no problem.
Tell me a little bit about your media career. DJ, host, This World We Live In Live consists of a social issue, Issues of the Week, and new music heard on WXCI in Danbury, 91.7.
Well, my show is called This World We Live On, and we touch on social issues. We pick one every week. It's me and my co-host. His name's Joey King, but on the show he is banjo.
Okay.
He comes with a banjo, and he'll play while I guess have verbal diarrhea on the air.
Hey,
but
you're speaking my language. What do you think this is all about?
Marty.
Yeah. We got that down to an art form. Caller, you have a question or maybe some gainful employment for our guest, Carolina Barra. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Carolina, thank you for choosing your career in communications. Back in the late 70s, I actually started in radio. I started at WXCI, and I used to do the weather on cassette, and it was in actually Newbury Hall at the time. Now it's in the Student Center. But let me ask you this. Did you ever consider a career in motion picture production? Because the state of Connecticut, we do have a tax break for that. And I think there is a class coming up in I think September in Hamden. The governor tried to cut that, but we got with Chris Dodd, and he kind of bent his ear, and we got back the funding on that. I think it's in Quinnipiac. And I am right now trying to put together some people for a project. So if you leave your information with Candy Ann, I'll get back to her, and I can get maybe your information from Candy Ann Roswell. And listen, good luck with your career, all right?
Thank you so much.
Wow, wow. Yeah, we will definitely, give you all the contact information as well. So thanks for that call. Well, there you go.
See, we get public officials elected. We get people jobs. We restore the American dream right here.
Absolutely do. This is, one citizen at a time. We're going to rebuild this goddamn economy. The politicians be darned.
But is it possible that guy could employ her without, like, the government getting involved? I mean, can the private sector really work?
I think possibly he could. I don't know. He might be just looking for a date. You never know. Sickos out there. No, I'm sure it works.
Thanks. You just blew her chest, right? You just come on.
Yeah, we'll just make the connection and whatever happens.
But yes, This World We Live On.
That's a show.
We had our first season last semester, and it did really well. A lot of people would call in and just thank me for talking about the issues that we would. No boundaries. I mean, I think it was primarily because it's from 7 to 10, so a lot of people are either like in their car and have to listen.
Right.
So they get intrigued.
What is it every day, 7 to 10?
It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays from 7 to 10.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay, and it's 91.7.
Yep, FM.
Okay, and it's like call-in show, and do you take calls? And
I take calls, and I also play new music. So
now, did we get an invite to be on her show? Did we miss that?
I'm waiting for that. Now let me tell you a little bit like so your father moved over here from Romania with your mother. It came over as a family, or how did that work?
No, he had to flee.
Oh, he had to flee. Okay.
So he ended up. He tells me that he had to swim part of the Black Sea to get to Hungary.
Wow.
Where he was able to convince someone about their situation. He, of course, had to lie a little bit and make it seem a little more urgent, but he was able to get a visa over to, like a working visa, to the States. Okay. And then once he was settled, he got a hold of my mother, and my mother then was able to come with my 3 older siblings.
Okay, so they came. Now, what were his dreams and aspirations when he came, And what is his view of how things have worked out here, you know, say over the last 5 or 6 years? I mean, is he at home watching Fox News, throwing things at the TV, or what are his perspectives about the American dream and what he was hoping to do, and how's it's turned out?
My father is a very, very smart man. He's very on top of the ball. So I know the biggest reason why they came here was because of our futures, as in his children's futures. In 1988, living in Romania, your kids didn't have a future, and if they did, it was government involved completely. And my father is definitely defiant, did not want that.
Okay.
So he
made a very bad communist.
Yes, he was so bad at being communist.
Okay, good. Polish people are very bad communists too. Actually, the Chinese are too. They just don't follow orders. Anyways.
And so when he came here, he actually started his own business as a carpenter, and pretty much just trying to find means to provide for us.
Right.
When it comes to politics these days, he's very, it's not that he's indifferent, he just, I guess he won't buy anything.
Yeah, he doesn't believe the politicians. Oh, I've heard it all before. They promised me stuff and they never deliver. To heck with all of them.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he like picks up the newspaper and he's like, and he closes it back.
Yeah. I mean, it echoes a little bit what you're saying with the college students right now. You know, it's like, hey, we've been burned before. We bought a ticket on this this express train and it just went nowhere. So, you know, what are we going to put our hope and aspirations in? What about your mother? Is she working too, or your brothers? What are they involved in?
My mother works with ability beyond disability, so she actually has kind of a government-based job.
Right.
But as for my other siblings, they're all pretty much self-made. My sister, Veronica, she's a personal trainer. She has her own business. It's very successful in Stamford.
Oh, that's good.
She has her own studio and all that, so she does well. My older brother and my little brother are both trying to get into the family business. So, because my father's reaching 60,
right.
you know.
So doing
his
carpentry
60s.
and that kind of thing.
Yep, taking over that business. My little sister invested in the trade of hairstyling, so she's going to be, you know, she's going to register herself as her own like small business when she's out of school, get that going. And I'm pretty much the one that's helping them with the marketing, advertising, and all that. So we're trying to help us all.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what's built America. Is, you know, the next wave of immigrants coming to this country, searching after their American dream, and the politics, the economy, be damned, they're gonna.
See, I think, and we talked a little bit briefly when Carter was in office, he didn't really evoke a lot of positive emotion. You get Reagan in. The first thing that when he gets in office, the Iranians go, "I'm not messing with this guy. I'm letting these hostages go." The day he's inaugurated,
no, they asked him. He goes, "I will not negotiate with these barbarians."
Yeah, he gives a speech and he says, "It's morning in America. I don't know what your problem is. And we're going to be tough and strong." He reinstates the American dream. Obama comes along and he says, "You know, American exceptionalism, it doesn't exist, and we have to accept the fact we're going to be a second-tier economy and country." I mean, it's just.
We're wrapping up. Carolina, I just want to thank you so much for appearing on the show.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming out and just giving your perspective. Dave, fist pump. Thank you very much for coming in here.
Yeah, very good.
And also my guest, Mark Greenberg, thank you very much. Join us again next week, where if we can get it together, you're going to see me swimming with sharks. Yes, tune in next week. It's a whole video thing, Bahamas, super boat. You'll like it. It's kind of entertaining. Watch the show. We'll see you next week on the Marty Heiser Show, where you always get the truth. Thanks, and we'll see you next week. Woohoo! I got 2